on his brain.
And now the police have lost total control of the Manchester airport narrative. Are they caving in to mob rule? And all of that appears to have completely overshadowed a British Army officer being stabbed to within an inch of his life in broad daylight. Are society's priorities completely warped? Also tonight...
Because of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people, probably he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia court.
We have an exclusive recording of vile Islamist Anjem Chowdhury making some astonishing comments about Prince Harry. Plus, the lefties in America have gone fully mental.
Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
And on my panel tonight, it's GBNews star Nana Akua, Tory peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Larzer. Oh yes, and can you guess who Keir Starmer is talking about here?
He worked particularly with steel.
Get ready, Britain, here we go. Why are people more outraged about what happened at Manchester Airport than a British Army officer being stabbed? Next.
Patrick, thank you and good evening. Well, the top story from the GB newsroom tonight is that the police watchdog says investigators will be examining hours of body-worn video and CCTV footage following an altercation which has resulted in a police officer being suspended from duty. Greater Manchester Police say they were called to reports of an assault in the airport car park where they were punched to the ground and a female police officer's nose was broken. After that, police are shown on a video circulating online subduing the arrested men forcefully, including using a kick to the head. A solicitor representing two of the men involved says they're family members of a Greater Manchester police officer, and he says the family is traumatised by what has happened. Meanwhile, there have been protests tonight outside Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham's office. Demonstrators have now left of their own accord without any police intervention. And the other main story today, a man charged with attempted murder after the stabbing of a uniformed army officer in Kent has been remanded in custody for his own welfare. 24-year-old Anthony Essan was arrested near his home in Rochester just 30 minutes after the violent attack, which left the army officer with multiple stab wounds. Essan was also charged with possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. He'll be back in court next month. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Teaton remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital after the stabbing near Brompton Barracks in Gillingham on Tuesday evening. The NHS has urged people today to come forward as blood donors amid an urgent shortage of certain blood types. The Health Service has issued an amber alert after national stocks of O-negative and O-positive blood types fell to unprecedented low levels. It's understood the recent cyber attacks affecting London hospitals and more people missing appointments has contributed to the shortage. Hospitals are now being asked to restrict transfusions of type O blood cases only down to the essential ones. Now, two Just Stop Oil activists have been found guilty of criminal damage after throwing tinned soup over Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers painting in 2022. Anna Holland and Phoebe Plummer, who are both 22, damaged the painting, which was on display at London's National Gallery, by throwing 2 tins of soup over the 1888 artwork, which is protected, incidentally, by a layer of glass, before they then knelt in front of the painting and glued their hands to the wall. A 40-year-old man has become the first person to be charged under the new XL bully dog laws. Ashley Warren was charged over the death of Esther Martin, who was killed by 2 XL bully dogs in Essex in February. It's the first case of its kind since new laws on owning XL bully dogs came into force this year. And Andy Murray has officially withdrawn from the singles event at the Paris Olympics. The 2-time gold medalist is still not fully recovered from his back surgery. He says the men's doubles, where he's playing with Dan Evans, offers his best chance of another medal. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
I find it absolutely ridiculous that there's been more outrage over the incident at Manchester Airport than there is about a serving British Army officer being stabbed to within an inch of his life outside of barracks. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Teaton is a father of two. He was stabbed 12 times, reportedly. He was in his military uniform at the time as well. And, of course, his wife's screams can be heard in the shocking Ring doorbell footage. This was big news until footage of this incident at Manchester Airport emerged. And then it all shifted, didn't it? The conversation all became about racism in the police. Politicians all piled in, one after each other. People decided that they were going to go out and protest over it. In fact, they are protesting right now.
Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
A British Army officer is fighting for his life after being stabbed in broad daylight whilst wearing his uniform. Now, in my view, that should cause more outrage and concern than what we saw in Manchester. But let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. I'm joined by GB News presenter Nana Acquia. I've also got Conservative peer Lord Bailey. And I am joined as well by former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Now, Nana, I just wonder a little bit, and I just want to emphasise right at the start here, you know, we don't want to find ourselves, you know, in breach of any contempt of court laws, and there is a very serious ongoing investigation into both of these issues, actually. But I just wonder what it says about society, Nana, that, you know, the second there is the kind of whiff of Islamophobia, it seems to completely distract from another very serious incident. And I wonder whether this is symptomatic of something.
Well, I mean, who would want to be in the army? Literally. No, it feels like nobody cares. We have got some brave people that are prepared to go to war to protect this country. And when something happens to them, there was a little bit of media furore about it, but then it's literally been forgotten, it's been eclipsed. But that seems to be the way it has been for a lot of veterans anyway. They go to war, we're all like, come on, and then when it's all over, there's very little support for them. A lot of them deal with mental health issues. And, I mean, who would want to be wearing any kind of uniform these days when you are in these in the uniform, you're under attack? And this is, unfortunately, what we find here. And I think, really, the focus should be on they've spoken about his attacker, but really what they do with people who maybe have mental health issues, and also how they look after the veterans, really focusing on veterans, you know. Yeah,
and Sean, you know, here we are, yet again, politicians couldn't respond quick enough to what we saw in Manchester, much less so to what we saw outside of barracks.
I think there's two things to say. Firstly, I take a wider view. This is about how we see ourselves as a society. You're talking about people who are in the army, who've signed a piece of papers to say they will die on our behalf. It doesn't matter where you sit politically. They don't make that judgment. They just act for you. One of my proudest achievements is that I happen to be Honorary Colonel for the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. 2 minutes with those boys will let you know that they have the ultimate respect for the public, and that's why they joined. And the other thing as well, if you're deeply left-wing pacifist, ask yourself which organisation in this country has done the most humanitarian work. That would be our British Armed Forces. And I only say that to show everybody this is a group of men and women who can be universally supported. So when the mainstream media doesn't pick up on this kind of stuff, it's just disappointing. We are very busy tearing down anything that looks traditional, but that will be a problem for us all in the future.
Matthew, I do wonder whether or not there is an issue with the left on this, which is that, you know, when they see something that's got the whiff of Islamophobia about it, they're all over it. Do they care more about, you know, Islamophobia than they do about our armed forces?
Well, I think that's maybe a few left-wing commentators and people on Twitter and other social media. I mean, I think that as far as politicians are concerned, I think everybody across party was absolutely condemning the events that we saw in Kent. And, you know, clearly, when the court proceedings come to a conclusion, we need to learn the lessons there, both about, you know, how we protect our armed forces when they're in and around the barracks, but also about, you know, attitudes that there may or may not be from certain people towards the armed forces. I think that what is disgraceful with the situation in Manchester is people jumping on the bandwagon, having seen little bits of footage, not seen the whole thing. Nobody's seen the whole thing. We've just heard in the news that the watchdog is going to look at hundreds of hours of footage because, of course, everybody's got body cam footage, there's different CCTV angles, etc. But for people to be leaping on the bandwagon is absolutely disgraceful, and everybody needs to take a step back until we know what the final story is.
It goes slightly deeper. I think why these things are pushed in certain parts of the media is actually about identity politics. And they've identified that this kind of reporting makes them powerful, means that they gain more purchase in the political arena. But I want everybody to look at who are you supporting and why. We are giving legitimacy to people who do not respect our liberal democracy. And I believe in a few years' time, you'll have legitimised these people so much, they'll be unstoppable. And if you're a lefty and you like the democracy, remember that these people don't. And you're actually in their firing line should they get any power.
Well, it's all about optics, isn't it? And it's depending on what will make me look better if I support this cause or that cause. And I do feel that that's what happens with these things. They become very politicised, and then instead of people actually focusing on what's actually happened, so in the case of Manchester, we don't know what's happened. We literally do not know. So there's nobody should be casting any judgment at all. In fact, people shouldn't even be putting it out there and talking about it. But we do know what happened with regard to this poor soldier who was attacked, and that's what we should be focusing on, and how we look after our veterans, and whether we're going to attract people to join the armed forces and also the police.
I think go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and of course, the character, the lawyer who's turned up, is our old friend from Birmingham, who's been caught on camera talking with some absolutely disgraceful views about women between him and the other people on that podcast recording that was released during the election campaign, when thankfully he wasn't elected. But also, he's also being investigated by the Solicitors Regulatory Authority because there were accusations that there were sort of potentially false claims about racism.
I'm not going to defend the guy, but the bottom line is this is not about him.
No, but he shouldn't be jumping on the bandwagon.
What is the jumping on the bandwagon bit? They're all doing it. They're all doing it.
Anybody does it is wrong.
What it's about, he's just systematic of who we're now legitimising. If someone bullies and controls and virtue signals in any sort of mix, somehow the press finds a way to support that person when actually they should be challenging that person.
Well, we're going to talk at the top of the 10. We're going to really zone in more on this Manchester incident, so there'll be much more to talk about there. Ahmed Yaqub obviously is not here to defend himself at the moment, but there we go. I want to ask you though, Sean, if I was in the military now, right, I would be wondering, and just generally, and I think I probably would have wondered this for many years, not just now, but whether or not, military uniform gives me a bit of a target on my back, or whether or not I am going to get, the right level of protection or support from people. I think back to, D-Day, it was not that long ago. We had pride flags up and down Regent Street. We didn't have the Union flag. This is symptomatic, I think, of where they are in the social strata. The armed forces actually below other groups of people.
Listen, the advent of identity politics has created a hierarchy. Some people refer to it as a victims' Olympics. And any institution that is traditional, that is seen as British, is simply not in the running.
Colonialism, empire.
And the armed forces are definitely off most people's agenda. What's interesting is any uniform, Nana mentioned this beforehand, if you look at how the police have struggled, particularly in London, to recruit, it's about how people talk about the police in general. Do the police have their problems? Of course they do, but no more than any other institute I'd suggest. But they are tried so regularly in the paper, so biasly, that now people won't join. And ironically, it is the communities, black communities, poor communities, that are most at risk if we cannot increase the numbers who join the army and the police.
Well, I think that's right, because I think you need to get that diversity. Actually, literally, as I got on the tube on the way here, there was a clearly group of sort of British Legion's veterans, and then I hadn't noticed, and then one was just behind me, and they turned out they were all wearing the poppy and the pride badge. It must have been a group of LGBT veterans, and there must have been a meeting locally. So, I think it's about getting people from all our communities to serve, and to serve with pride, and because they've served with distinction. So, but therefore we must, people who wear their uniform should be respected.
Well, why would they want to, though? I mean, who would want to do it? You're vilified. If anything goes wrong, everyone scrutinises you closely. I mean, there's been soldiers who've gone out and done things in war who are being scrutinised now because of what they did in the war. or, you know, it's all this retrospective justice that seems to favour those who are perpetrators of whatever it is. And we continue to do this. So who's going to join the armed forces? Who's going to join the police? Who is going to protect us if we do not protect them?
Unfortunately, Nana, you're right. You only have to look at the figures. The Army has been pushing a huge recruitment programme. You talk here, but the Navy talk about not being able to man ships or put personnel on ships, men and women, because they're lacking the recruitment.
Person ships.
It's person ships. Excuse me, person ships.
Staff. Staff, yes.
The point to be made is we are now raising up a group of young people who not only don't like the country, they're actively supported if they act in that way. And I'd say this as well. A lot of the pressure that our uniformed services are under, our country's under, is actually external bad actors. You only have to spend 2 minutes on Twitter or on YouTube to see people attacking the country.
And it's on that is why I wanted to have this discussion, all right? And it's a very difficult discussion to have for numerous different reasons. But when I was on social media and when I was looking at, consuming all of the actual establishment media of 2 incidents that took place yesterday, or one was the day before, and I just thought, gosh, there is a massive difference in the way that this appears, the narrative that is being peddled here. And there was one, i.e., what happened outside that barracks, that I thought, for society anyway, screamed massively more alarm bells for me and was much more concerning than another one. Now, maybe that was just me.
And it isn't the first incident, of course. We've seen outside barracks.
They both scream for society, but they need to both be dealt with balanced. That was maybe, potentially, we don't know, an officer who's done something that needs looking at, but that's an officer, not the entire service.
But we don't know the full story, though.
Exactly.
And my point is, it wasn't dealt with balance.
We'll return to the Manchester incident a little bit later on, but coming up, Reform's Justice spokesperson, Anne Widdecombe, does give her take on what went on at Manchester Airport. Are the police now giving in to mob rule? Plus, she's going to tackle the Tory leadership race, and after Stand Up to Racism, whose president is Diane Abbott, by the way, organise a toss a milkshake at Nigel Farage stall. Is there a double standard in our treatment of certain politicians? Plus, we've got an exclusive recording for you of vile Islamist Anjem Chowdhury making some astonishing comments about Prince Harry.
Because of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people, probably he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia court.
That full explosive recording comes later. But yes, next, J.K. Rowling has slammed Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy for passing the buck and saying that each sport should decide if trans athletes can compete with women. So I'm asking tonight, do you trust Labour to protect women's rights? Former British Olympian Mara Yamauchi goes head-to-head with discrimination lawyer Robin Moira White. And that's next. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And this week, it's disabled adventurer Nick Wilson and rock engineering director Elliot Dayson-Barber from the Institution of Engineering and Technology.
Yes, earlier this month, Nick Wilson summited Mount Snowdon unaided. The first time this has been attempted with the help of an engineered electric mobility chair called the Rock Climber.
Tell us what you did, when you did it, and why it's so amazing, because it's the first time this has been done, isn't it?
You feel lazy, you should try being me, going up a mountain and I was just pressing the accelerator. these poor buggers had to go and come up behind me. It still hasn't sunk in properly, and to be the first disabled person to do it during Disability Pride Month is... I couldn't have asked for anything else. But it's all possible because of Rock Engineering. They've been working on this for the past 2 years to create this machine. I wouldn't be here because I was struggling a lot with loneliness and isolation. I was very suicidal, and they literally saved my life with this project.
The whole thing came around by accident, meeting Nick, and he kind of highlighted some issues to us in terms of his accessibility, and he lives in Toaster near where we're based, and he came down the high street and sort of said, I can't even get into the shops in the high street.
So, Nick, you just mentioned that the kind of place you were in before doing this, you were lonely, suicidal. Yeah. What was it like when you finally managed to scale Snowdon? Because I've done it on foot, and just being for anyone, being in nature and fresh air.
The one word that I think I've used throughout this is freeing. It is when you're so reliant on drop curves. It's freeing that you're not reliant on a hard-standing path or drop curves, wherever, you can, in rock climb, you can literally go anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And freeing is the big word, and it's amazing.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, coming up, we've got loads on. So is ECHR membership only a talking point in the Tory leadership contest because Nigel Farage's Reform UK party have put the issue on the map? That's the same Nigel Farage who is currently, in one way or another, being milkshaked, by the way. More on that later. And we do have exclusive footage as well of Islamist Anjem Chowdhury making some astonishing comments about Prince Harry. But first, can we really trust Labour to stand up for women's rights? It's time now for the head-to-head. So J.K. Rowling has now slammed the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, after the Labour MP suggested that there could be some circumstances in which trans athletes could compete in women's sport. Speaking to The House magazine, Nandy said that individual sports should decide whether or not biological males should compete against women. She added, "We ought to respect the fact that they're far more expert in making those judgments and decisions than we are. I want to make sure that they feel supported to be able to make those decisions fairly. But I think most have come to the conclusion that, although they want to be as inclusive as possible, biology does matter when it comes to sport." Well, get this. It comes after 3 trans athletes dominated the podium at a cycling event in America last week, relegating female competitors to the sidelines. And as the nation gears up for the opening ceremony of Paris 2024 tomorrow, at the last Olympics in Tokyo, the weightlifter from New Zealand, Laurel Hubbard, became the first trans woman to compete alongside biological women at the Games. I must say, it didn't go that well for her, but it did look as though it's because you're not bothered. But anyway, after Lisa Nandy opened the door to trans athletes competing alongside biological women, can we really trust Labour to protect women? I want to know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews. Make sure you vote in our poll. But first, going head-to-head on this. Former Olympic athlete Mara Yamauchi and the discrimination lawyer Robin Moira White. Thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Mara, is this a concerning statement, do you think, from Labour's Culture Secretary?
Well, I think it's important to look at the detail of what she said. She said biology does matter. She's correct. That's the truth. I welcome that. But the logical next step of biology does matter is that males should not be competing in the female category under any circumstances because sport needs to be fair and safe for women and girls. But what she said instead was, let's leave this to our national governing bodies to decide. And in theory, that would be okay. However, in practice, it's proved to be not okay. Here we are now nearly 3 years after the UK Sports Council's issued their report, which was very clear. It said, fair and safe sport for women and girls cannot coexist with males in the female category. And despite nearly 3 years passing, most sports in the UK still allow males in the female category. There are only a tiny number who have protected the female category. So what I would like to see from Nandy is leadership and encouragement and pressure on the governing bodies to restore fair and safe sport for females.
OK. Yeah, a definite sense, I think, Robin, that she's passing the buck there, really. And, Robin, we did show a picture earlier on of some of those cyclists, OK, that came, I believe, first, second and third in that particular race. And, you know, you only have to look at the size difference there to know that that is unfair. I mean, do you think biology does matter when it comes to sport?
Well, I think we'd have to start with asking what's happening in British cycling. British cycling have made a decision that Mara would like, in that they followed the science and they followed the law, which is part of the Equality Act that Labour passed when it was last in power, which permits exclusion for fair competition or for safety. So you've chosen to show what's happening in America. If we actually looked at British cycling, they are one of those codes that ARA would support. Now, there are other sporting codes where the sport is not gender affected. I used to compete in competitive shooting. Now, one couldn't argue that, you know, there is a gender effect in that sport. On the other hand, we've just watched Wimbledon, and you plainly wouldn't, you know, where the strength of serve is important, then that's a sport right at one end of the spectrum, and it would be very obvious that the strength of serve would make a difference in terms of fair competition.
Well, that's an interesting point. Yeah,
but there will be sports in between, and I thought GB News viewers didn't believe in big government. I thought GB News viewers...
Yeah, I do think, though, to be fair, Robin, I also think GB News viewers don't like the idea of men in women's changing rooms and men taking a gold medal off a woman and the suspension of biological fact. I think that is something that does ring true whenever I certainly see any GB News viewers out and about or read the emails. But, Mara, on that, has Robin got a point that there are some sports, actually, where it doesn't really matter, like shooting?
If a sport is sex-affected, i.e. there is a difference between males and females, then there must be a separate male category. A sport like equestrian, as I understand it, can be mixed sex because there's no clear advantage held by males. But if a sport is sex-affected, even to the tiniest degree, there must be single-sex categories. There can also be mixed-sex categories, and that's fine for those who want to play mixed-sex competitions. But there must be a female category if a sport is even in the slightest bit sex-affected. Just coming back to what Robin said about British cycling, it's important to note that their Breeze programme, which is for recreational level, this is Breeze rides, which are supposed to be women only. And as I understand it, trans-identifying males are allowed into those rides. They're allowed to lead those rides. So women and girls turning up there expecting a women-only cycle ride could be led out into the countryside by a male. This is not safe and not fair for females.
The implication, Robin, of what Lisa Nandy has said there would be that if women's football associations or women's rugby associations or whatever it may be do make the decision that trans men can compete against women or alongside women in those situations, then the Labour government wouldn't stand in the way of that. So the Labour government would pass that onto that. And I do think that is a dereliction of leadership.
You mean trans women, I think, not trans men.
Probably.
You probably meant trans women. Well, but that's been the law since 2010, that it's been lawful for the sporting body to make that decision. And Labour have said very clearly that they're not... They regard the Equality Act as one of the jewels in Labour's crown, quite rightly, I think, and have said that they're not intending to alter those provisions of the Equality Act.
OK. So, Mara, look, you know, maybe this is a question of just, you know, are we being a bit sensitive about this? I mean, is it really going to happen at the elite Olympic level? Although, to be fair, I did look at it before, and I saw Laurel Hubbard competing in the weightlifting for New Zealand at the last Olympics, I believe.
This matters at all levels. You know, it's not just at elite level. Women at grassroots level, beginner level, recreational level, masters level, women and girls deserve fair and safe sport. And it's interesting, in your introduction, you said Hubbard did look like he'd not bothered. You know, we've seen males deliberately underperforming in the female category. This makes a total mockery of sport. Sport is about doing your absolute best. And male sandbagging to try and hide their male advantage just totally corrupts what sport is.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I covered that at the time, right, a few years ago now, and I think it's really interesting that you would say, like, you would know a lot more about that than I would as someone who is an Olympian yourself. But that's what it looked like to me. It looked like there'd been a big hoo-ha about Laurel Hubbard turning up and oh, is she going to, or he going to win the gold? It looked to me like someone who just came in, you know, having completely not bothered to train, really. I found that a bit weird.
We saw this with Leah Thomas. We've heard of coaches shouting at male athletes from the sidelines, you know, don't try too hard, don't make it look too obvious. This is a complete corruption of what sport is. And coming back to the Equality Act, Section 195 explicitly permits single-sex sports, so it is lawful to exclude all males, including GRC holders, from the female category.
Robin, look, final word to you on this. What is it, do you think, about women in the Labour Party that they find so difficult to stand up for other women?
But they stand up for everyone. That's the point of the Equality Act. It balances the needs of all people, and where it's fair to exclude, it allows exclusion, and where it's not fair to exclude, it doesn't permit exclusion.
OK. All right, look, both of you, thank you very, very much. That was Olympic athlete Mara Yamauchi there, discrimination lawyer Robin Moira-White. Look, who do you agree with? Do you trust Labour to protect women? Phyllis on X says absolutely not. Labour are responsible for the state of emergency women and girls find themselves in. They are an abomination. Daniel on Your Say says, why don't they just have their own category? That would make more sense. Joe on X says, Labour don't care about women, and the sad thing is so many of the UK were foolish enough to vote for them. So not a huge amount of, for want of a better phrase, diversity in that inbox there. But your verdict is now in. 4% of you trust Labour to protect women, 96% of you do not. Coming up, after a soldier was stabbed more than 12 times while in uniform outside his barracks in Kent, does more need to be done now to protect our brave armed forces? Former British Army officer Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford offers his expert opinion shortly. Plus, we have an exclusive recording of vile Islamist Anjem Chowdhury making some absolutely unbelievable comments about Prince Harry.
Because of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people, probably he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia court.
I'll bring you the full version shortly. Trust me, it is absolutely extraordinary. But first. Well, protests are happening again over Manchester Airport incident, are they? So are Greater Manchester Police in danger now of just giving in to mob rule? Reform's Justice spokeswoman Anne Widdecombe will tackle that, the Tory leadership race and the controversial Farage milkshake stall at a Pride festival. All of that's next.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. There's likely to be something a bit drier and warmer early next week, but before then, plenty of showers. And actually, through the end of today, there is still some more persistent rain affecting some parts of the southeast due to a waving frontal system that's already brought quite a bit of rain. That rain in the far southeast should clear through as we go through the next few hours, though. And so for many, it is going to be a largely dry night, just a scattering of showers continuing across western parts of Scotland in particular, also parts of Northern Ireland and northwest England. Many places, though, having some clear skies, and it may be a touch fresher than last night towards the northwest, still quite warm and muggy towards the southeast. And as we go through tomorrow morning, then a bright start for many. Maybe the odd pocket of mist and fog around, but I think on the whole it's largely dry. A few showers already pushing into parts of western England and Wales, but further east a drier story. A few showers also for western parts of Northern Ireland, but it's down the western side of Scotland where the showers are going to be most frequent, and there could already be some heavy ones as we go through the morning. Eastern parts of Scotland clinging on to some fine sunny weather through a large chunk of the morning, but as we head towards the afternoon, those showers are going to become a bit more widespread. Some of them could be on the heavy side, and there could be the odd rumble of thunder mixed in, albeit they don't look as intense as the showers that we saw yesterday. Plenty of showers for Northern Ireland. Parts of western England and Wales may see a few showers, staying dry towards the east, and a decent amount of sunshine, and with that feeling pretty warm again, temperatures in the mid-20s for some. Looking ahead to Saturday, and after a mostly fine start for many of us, we are going to see the showers developing yet again. Slight differences in where we're most likely to see the showers. Probably Northern England, North Wales could see the heaviest showers on Saturday, and they could be quite slow moving because the winds will be dropping out a little bit. But Sunday into Monday looks drier and warmer. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend.
Lucky us.
Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys. Tonight on GB News, still to come, as a 24-year-old man is charged with attempted murder after a soldier was stabbed over 12 times whilst in uniform outside his barracks in Kent. Does more need to be done to protect our brave armed forces? Retired Royal Navy officer Rear Admiral Chris Parry gives his expert analysis. But first, we welcome the political legend that is Anne Widdecombe. Now, the Tory leadership race is taking shape. Former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat announcing his bid with a promise to bring common-sense conservatism to the party. He also said he's willing to leave the ECHR, warning that if institutions made it harder for Britain to control its borders, the UK would have to exempt ourselves from them or leave their jurisdiction. Well, this comes just days after Reform UK leader Nigel Farage called for a referendum on leaving the ECHR. In fact, he's since tweeted, ECHR membership is a Tory leadership issue because reform are a force. The difference is we want to leave and they just pretend. And thank you very, very much for joining me. Did the Tories suffer so badly at the election because of their failure to deal with our membership of the ECHR? And actually, frankly, can anyone trust people like Tom Tugendhat when they say this stuff?
Well, on the first question, did they suffer because of ECHR? They certainly suffered because they'd lost control of immigration. And, of course, the reason why the Rwanda plan ran into difficulties was the ECHR. So I think you can say as a result of that, that had an impact on the election, yes. Your question about Tom Tugendhat is extremely relevant because he was a very sizable Remainer. I can't ever remember, and I stand open to correction, but I can't ever remember him saying previously that he wanted us to leave the ECHR. If the Tories are going to go ahead and campaign to come out of the ECHR, I'm all for that, but I'd like to be persuaded that they do actually mean it.
Yeah, well, on what evidence is there to suggest it? I mean, they've had numerous opportunities. I mean, the fact is, and you know, when their backs were against the wall and they knew they were going to get a kicking at this election, they still didn't do it then. So they didn't even do it to save their own jobs at the time. So it does beg the question, why would they do it now?
Well, I think the answer is that they wouldn't. I think the answer is that they're also very divided on this issue. You know, there are one or two who do believe in leaving ECHR, an awful lot of them who don't. And therefore, they're not going to make this a centrepiece of policy. This is a rather cynical leadership ploy.
Yeah, I mean, that's also because there are a huge number of Liberal Democrats just pretending to be Conservatives, isn't there? Because previously you were more successful as a Tory, but how times change. Anyway, now, a police incident at Manchester Airport yesterday has sparked unfounded accusations of police brutality and racism after officers were filmed behaving pretty robustly towards their suspects. This led to protests against police in Rochdale, where one of the arrested men reportedly lives, with community tensions once again threatening to boil over. Now, not everyone is so critical of the police response, though.
The message I'm getting loud and clear from my constituents is that they are fed up with seeing police dancing around rainbows and being nice to people and running off from rioters. They want the police to do their job. And I think these police yesterday should be commended. They should, in fact, I'd give them a medal.
Anne, do you agree with Lee there?
Well, I certainly agree that the police need to respond robustly. I always say when things like this happen, look, don't just show us the incident itself. Show us what led up to it. Show us what the offenders were doing. Show us all of that before you say the police have overreacted. And I do feel very strongly about that. There's a pattern developing now in public commentary whereby you just see a selected piece of video and you are invited to make judgment on that without, of course, the wider context being on display.
Yeah, by the way, I am absolutely amazed at how quickly Greater Manchester Police have managed to lose control of this narrative. Absolutely amazed about it. And, there presumably is footage. Well, there is. We know there are. Hours and hours and hours of footage. Has the time not come, potentially, for them, in the light of all of this, to start putting some of that out? Because it's a one-way street, Anne. And what we're seeing now is another societal issue, which is the rush to protest and the rush to frankly, kick off. You've got people outside a police station in Rochdale last night shouting Allahu Akbar, being advised on what lawyer to call if they get arrested for protesting. And you think, is this a problem in British society?
I'd have had a lot more respect for the police if they'd gone out and actually made some arrests. There's all this emphasis now on containing a situation. That's what they call it. Contain it. Don't inflame it. Calm it down. Well, that's all very well. But if people are behaving unlawfully, the police are there to enforce the law. It's about time they started doing it.
Well, now, police have concluded that no laws were broken at the recent Chesterfield Pride event, Anna. This is, I must admit, a topic I never really imagined I would talk to you about, Chesterfield Pride. But they received complaints about this toss and milkshake at Nigel Farage game. The store was organised by the Chesterfield and North Derbyshire branch of Stand Up to Racism, whose president happens to be Labour MP Diane Abbott. Now, the organisation insisted that the game was harmless and light-hearted fun. But, Anne, after the recent attempt on Donald Trump's life, and obviously some of the issues that Nigel Farage has faced himself, should we be taking this kind of, ribbing of politicians a bit more seriously, do you think?
Well, look, I think that particular stunt was distasteful, but I don't think it goes beyond that. I don't think they were encouraging violence. I don't think that's what they meant to do. What they meant to do was get a lot of publicity, and you've given it to them.
Oh, well, I suppose, Anne, but, Nigel Farage, I imagine, isn't particularly happy about all of this. I mean, one day it's a fake milkshake at a Chesterfield Pride event, and another day it's a real milkshake somewhere else, and goodness knows what else, isn't it, really? But Diane Abbott is in charge, or, quite high up anyway, when it comes to the stand-up to racism thing. Do you think she needs to be stopping things like this within her organisation, as it were?
Oh, well, look, don't hold your breath. She won't do that. I've never yet known Diane Abbott try to calm the situation down. She's likely to do the opposite and say it was all justified, etc. But as I say, when I say you've given it to them, I don't mean you personally, Patrick Christys, but the media has given this publicity. They should have ignored it.
Well, I know. Nigel has, to be fair, himself come out and said that he thinks that Diane should condemn this kind of stuff. But like you said, I think we might be waiting a heck of a long time for that, Anne. But can I just say a massive thank you, Anne? Great to have you on the show, as ever. There's the wonderful Anne Widdicombe there. OK, so, lots to come. Coming up...
Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
Yeah, if you're listening on radio, it might not be immediately obvious what that is, but those are protests continuing as we speak after an armed officer was suspended for kicking a suspect at Manchester Airport. But have Greater Manchester Police given in to a mob? And sorry, why has nobody been charged? Did a female officer have her nose broken or not? What went on? I'll tackle that head-on at 10. But next, after a soldier was stabbed more than 12 times whilst in uniform outside his barracks in Kent, does more need to be done now to protect our brave armed forces? Former British Army officer Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford is live and he's next.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Oh no, just when I thought it was safe, here we go round again. The target this time is one of the most recognisable landmarks in London. Standing at 176 feet tall, the Albert Memorial was commissioned by Queen Victoria in 1862 to honour her late husband, Prince Albert, and was built 10 years later, a year and a century before I was born. Now, situated in Hyde Park, the monument depicts a gold statue of the Prince, alongside 4 groups of large statues which represent the 4 continents of the world: Asia, America, Africa and Europe. Now, the statues representing Asia include a woman on an elephant. America is represented by a Native American with a bison. Africa shows a woman riding a camel, and there's a white European woman reading a book to a black African tribesman. Now, the Royal Park's website claims that these statues draw on racial stereotypes. The Royal Parks, who manage parks in London, deemed it as highly offensive because it reflects a Victorian view of the world. Of course, it reflects a Victorian view of the world. It was built in the Victorian era by request of Queen Victoria. Shock, horror. And it only reflects this view, if you even know what that is. Why would this be offensive? Surely you could at least appreciate the fact and the feat of this artwork, which is quite impressive, even now. Daily Mail journalist Robert Hardman went on a tour of those incredible tunnels, and he said it goes on and on like the catacombs until you realise that you're actually going round and round a series of concentric circles. This is a monument in itself to the technical rigour and pride which went into the Victorian engineering. Exactly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I have got a heck of a lot coming your way in the next hour. So, Greater Manchester Police, are they just giving in to mob rule? Why has nobody been charged? Did a female officer have her nose broken or not? What went on? The other one is the exclusive footage that we've got for you of Andrew Chowdhury, the Islamist himself, making some astonishing comments about Prince Harry. But first, 24-year-old Anthony Essan appeared in court today, accused of the attempted murder of the senior army officer Mark Teaton. The Lieutenant Colonel was stabbed multiple times while wearing military uniform near Brompton Barracks in Kent on Tuesday, and he remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital. Well, the incident has obviously raised a huge amount of concerns and what protocols might be in place to help protect members of our armed forces. And I'm joined now by former British Army officer Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Stuart, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. I will just emphasise again, you know, we do not want to find ourselves at all in any kind of contempt of court situation here. We absolutely would not want to prejudice anything that goes on going forward. But I'm very keen to just know, in general terms, about what kind of protocol there is for members of our armed forces when it comes to things like wearing uniform outside of barracks and stuff like that. What are the rules there? What's the advice, the guidance?
Good evening, Patrick. Well, all I would say is that we've been here before. And when I was serving, we had the euphemistically called troubles in Northern Ireland, where members of the British Armed Forces were directly targeted by IRA terrorists. And we were discouraged and forbidden from wearing uniform in public because of the threat, which was very real at the time. And I always thought that that was a victory for the terrorists, because basically they forced uniformed armed forces personnel off the street. And indeed, we had to check under our cars before we got into them in case there was a car bomb there, both in the UK and London. I remember doing it well, and also in Germany, where the IRA did attack. But I think we have to accept that in a free liberal democracy in which we, thank goodness, still live, the uniformed armed forces are still part of our civic society. And to have them driven off the streets is probably not unacceptable. So forbidding people to wear a uniform in public, I think, is a retrograde step. It doesn't happen in other places with a diminished terrorist threat, like in the USA, where members of all three armed services proudly wear their uniforms in public, and I've lived there, and are complimented on them by the general public. And I think, although I'm not a great fan of all things American, that's the sort of paradigm that we should be looking for in the UK.
Yeah, again, I'm not in any way, shape or form looking to make specific reference to the incident that's taken place outside that barracks in Kent, but I do wonder, Stuart, whether or not as a society we've got to a situation where somebody wearing a military uniform can actually open themselves up to criticism in the street. I wonder, various different wars in the Middle East previously and things like that can lead to people actually copping it a bit for wearing a military uniform. You mentioned the difference between us and America there. I find that very sad if that's the case.
No, I mean, it very much is the case, or it was the case when I was representing the British Army in the USA in the 1990s. It was quite marked, the difference, because we had the troubles in Northern Ireland. But I think we've got to accept, I hope, that the uniformed armed services are part and parcel of our civic society. And there's no reason why they should not feel safe wearing the uniform that is part and parcel of their job. And bear in mind, they are, in essence, civil servants in uniform from doing so. And I think if we get to that point where they're banned from doing so, it'll be a sad day for the UK.
What kind of security is on offer for members of our armed forces when they are out and about? So whether it's leave or whether they are just leaving a barracks?
Well, I think the simple answer is very little. I mean, our soldiers and sailors and airmen don't carry sidearms as a rule, and therefore they really are subject to normal civilian rules and look to the police for their security against violence or anything like that. And I don't think there's any argument to be made for allowing them to carry sidearms, because then we're on the slippery slope of being an armed society like the USA, and I don't think anybody's got any real appetite for that.
No. Are they told things like, look, you are conceivably a civilian target up here? Because it does make me wonder, you add that to the long list of very questionable reasons as to why anybody might join the British Armed Forces. I mean, earlier on in the show, I did a bit of a contrast between the way that I felt a lot of the establishment media and certainly social media reacted to two incidents that really kind of kicked off at the same time. Obviously, what happened outside that barracks in Kent and what happened at Manchester Airport, and how quickly all of the narrative came about Manchester Airport. I just wonder, do our armed forces feel valued enough, really, do you think?
Well, I think the answer is no, and there are a whole host of reasons for that. But I think that the way that they are portrayed in the media, in general terms, is not necessarily favourable. And the way that the Ministry of Defence press, PR and media communications defend the armed forces is appallingly poor, and has been for as far back as I can remember. So I think there's a lot to be done in presenting the armed forces as a valuable part of civic society in the UK, because without defence of the realm and its citizens, then everything else is extremely vulnerable, and you can forget about the NHS and schools and education and housing and all that sort of stuff. If we can't defend it, then it's worthless.
Yeah, no, look, 100%. And we are now in a situation, aren't we, where we're talking about how we've got 3 years to prepare for war, or we've got however long to prepare for a war. And you think, well, maybe we shouldn't have given the military an absolute kicking. Maybe we shouldn't have gratuitously gone after people like Dennis Hutchins, etc., and tried them 3 times for the same thing and then left them to die on their own in a Belfast hospital and all of that stuff. You think maybe actually we should have done more to actually protect the legacy of our armed forces and look after our veterans, maybe even, dare I say it, pay them a bit more. We hear huge. I mean, we have massive strikes, don't we, for teachers, for nurses, for all of that stuff, for people who work on our railways. We don't strike for the army, do we? But we also don't go outside and clap them on a Tuesday evening. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Former British Army officer there, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. You take care. Coming up, we have an exclusive recording of vile Islamist Anjem Chowdhury making some astonishing comments about Prince Harry.
Because of of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people, probably he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia.
Look, make sure you tune in for that full recording. It's in the next hour. But next, as Greater Manchester Police suspend the armed officer involved in this incident following protests outside Rochdale Police Station, have they given in to the mob? Why has nobody been charged? Did a female police officer have her nose broken or not? All of that's next.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. There's likely to be something a bit drier and warmer early next week, but before then, plenty of showers. And actually, through the end of today, there is still some more persistent rain affecting some parts of the southeast due to a waving frontal system that's already brought quite a bit of rain. That rain in the far southeast should clear through as we go through the next few hours, though. And so for many, it is going to be a largely dry night, just a scattering of showers continuing across western parts of Scotland in particular, also parts of Northern Ireland and northwest England. Many places, though, having some clear skies, and it may be a touch fresher than last night towards the northwest, still quite warm and muggy towards the southeast. And as we go through tomorrow morning, then a bright start for many. Maybe the odd pocket of mist and fog around, but I think on the whole it's largely dry. A few showers already pushing into parts of western England and Wales, but further east a drier story. A few showers also for western parts of Northern Ireland, but it's down the western side of Scotland where the showers are going to be most frequent, and there could already be some heavy ones as we go through the morning. Eastern parts of Scotland clinging on to some fine sunny weather through a large chunk of the morning, but as we head towards the afternoon, those showers are going to become a bit more widespread. Some of them could be on the heavy side, and there could be the odd rumble of thunder mixed in, albeit they don't look as intense as the showers that we saw yesterday. Plenty of showers for Northern Ireland. Parts of western England and Wales may see a few showers, staying dry towards the east, and a decent amount of sunshine, and with that feeling pretty warm again, temperatures in the mid-20s for some. Looking ahead to Saturday, and after a mostly fine start for many of us, we are going to see the showers developing yet again. Slight differences in where we're most likely to see the showers. Probably Northern England, North Wales could see their heaviest showers on Saturday, and they could be quite slow moving because the winds will be dropping out a little bit. But Sunday into Monday looks drier and warmer. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Charles was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
I'm Charles. I won £18,000 cash. It was just amazing, and as soon as it goes into your bank account, it just changed. It's a life-changing thing.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. Shouts of Allahu Akbar outside Rochdale Police Station.
Every one of them officers needs to be arrested immediately.
Yeah, threats of massive public disorder if police aren't arrested over this. But why has the police officer been suspended and nobody else been charged? Didn't a female officer have her nose broken?
A CT scan has revealed there is a cyst on his brain.
And now, obviously, the police have lost total control of the Manchester Airport narrative. Are they caving into mob rule? Also,
because of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people, probably he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia court.
we have an exclusive recording of the vile Islamist Anjem Chowdhury making some astonishing comments about Prince Harry. Plus, a Team GB diver uses OnlyFans to fund his way to the Olympics, and the lefties in America have gone fully mental.
Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
On my panel tonight is GB News star Nana Akua. We've got Tory peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Larser. And yep, look, can you guess who Sir Keir Starmer's talking about here?
We work particularly with steel.
Yeah, get ready, Britain, here we go. I, like many others, have got a huge amount of concerns about what's going on in Manchester. Protests are taking place right now out on the streets. Loads of people are out there. They are protesting about that incident that happened at Manchester Airport. But what I want to know, really, is are Greater Manchester Police actually going to give in to mob rule? Next.
Patrick, thanks very much indeed. Well, the top story from the GB newsroom tonight is that the police watchdog says investigators will be examining hours of body-worn video and CCTV footage following the altercation, which has resulted in a police officer being suspended from duty. Greater Manchester Police say they were called to reports of an assault in the airport car park, where they were then punched to the ground and a female police officer's nose was broken. After that, police are shown on a video circulating online subduing the arrested men forcefully, including using a kick to the head. A solicitor representing two of the men involved says they're family members of a Greater Manchester police officer and they're traumatised by what happened. Meanwhile, there have been protests tonight outside Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham's office. Demonstrators did leave after that particular protest after no police intervention. Now, in other news today, a man charged with the attempted murder of a uniformed army officer in Kent was in court today and was remanded in custody for his own welfare. 24-year-old Anthony Essen was arrested near his home in Rochester just 30 minutes after a violent attack which left the uniformed army officer with multiple stab wounds. Essen was also charged with possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. He will be back in court next month. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Teaton remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital after the stabbing, which happened near Brompton Barracks in Gillingham on Tuesday evening. Politics, and the former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, will stand for the leadership of the Conservative Party, promising to win back voters who switched to Reform UK. He's the third Conservative to go for the top job after James Cleverly and last night Tom Tugendhat. James Cleverly says he's best placed to unite the party after the Tory election defeat. But Tom Tugendhat says the Conservatives have lost the trust of the British people after failing to deliver lower taxes and lower immigration. Meanwhile, the former chairman of the Conservative Party, Sir Jake Berry, has now said he's backing Tom Tugendhat to be the next leader of the party and agrees the UK should withdraw from the ECHR in order to be able to control the UK's immigration.
You've seen what's just happened in the recent election. We lost the trust of the British people because we failed to deliver. And I've got a track record of delivery, whether that's in the army on operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, or whether that's in Parliament standing up to those who would threaten us, those authoritarian dictators. And that's got me sanctioned by countries like China and Russia and Iran. And of course, I've been delivering in government, as the security minister, making sure that we are safe. And I can't talk about all the areas that I've been working on as security minister for obvious reasons, but absolutely prioritising the interests and security of the British people is exactly what I've done.
Tom Tugendhat. Now, the NHS was urging blood donors to come forward today amid an urgent shortage of certain blood types. The Health Service issuing an amber alert after national stocks of O-negative and O-positive blood types fell to unprecedented low levels. It's understood that the recent cyber attacks affecting London hospitals and more people missing appointments has contributed to the shortage. Hospitals are being asked to restrict transfusions of O blood types to essential cases only. In the United States, Joe Biden has said he couldn't let his personal ambition stand in the way of saving democracy as he addressed the nation during a televised speech from the Oval Office last night. In his first comments since announcing his decision to drop out of the presidential race, the 81-year-old has said it had been the honour of his life to serve the American people as president. But, he said, the future of the United States must come first and it's time to pass the torch to the next generation.
In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition.
Biden. Sport and Andy Murray has officially withdrawn from the singles event at the Paris Olympics. The two-time gold medalist isn't still fully recovered from the back surgery he had last month. He says the men's doubles, where he's playing with Dan Evans, offers his best chance of another medal. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. It feels like a civil war is about to erupt over the Manchester airport incident. Here's the clip that caused the controversy. And then the police put out two statements, both of them making reference to officers being violently assaulted by a group of men, a female officer having her nose broken, and two others requiring hospital treatment. And then we saw this.
Every one of them officers needs to be arrested immediately. If not, then we will go to Plan B and you will see big protests, I promise you. Protests like you've never seen before.
And then we got a crowd outside Rochdale Police Station, threatening protests, shouting stuff about Allah. They were even, it appeared to me anyway, getting advice on what lawyer to use if they got arrested during said protests.
If you want a really good solicitor, Robert Lazar is a specialist in protest law. He is from Manchester, Robert Lazar. Google the name. He's a Jewish, anti-Zionist, really good protester lawyer.
And then this bloke, Ahmed Yaqub, he got on the case, literally. The lawyer who ran to become the West Midlands mayor and the MP for Birmingham Ladywood.
I've documented the injuries and we are headed to Rochdale Police Station to make a formal complaint of assault and wounding against the police officers that have assaulted both Fahir and Ahmad and their elderly mother who was just there as a bystander.
And then after all that, this morning, the police changed their tune. They suspended the officer who kicked that man in the head. Well, we went to Greater Manchester Police several times today, including again just before we came to air. And they said to us that all 4 men that they arrested have been bailed and that no charges have been brought against them. And now, predictably, this happens.
Mohammed Fahir, his medical condition has worsened since last night. A CT scan has revealed there is a cyst on his brain.
The police have totally lost control of this now, haven't they? And there's more protests tonight.
Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
I don't remember seeing protests like this over the grooming gang scandal. Do you? Now, as far as I can tell, one of 2 things is happening here. Either the police are lying about what led up to that head kick there. They're not being entirely truthful about the assaults on their police officers and the volatility of the situation, which I must say I personally find quite doubtful, because even Labour's Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has said that he's viewed all the footage in its entirety and he said that it's not clear-cut. Or, another option, is that we are witnessing police giving in to a mob in real time and throwing an officer under the bus. Which is it? Let's get thoughts my panel tonight. GB News presenter Nana Akua. We've also got Conservative peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. Nana, do you think that the police need to now just show some of the footage that they must have, which presumably, unless they are lying about this, would vindicate some of their officers?
I don't think, in the words of Andy Burnham, I don't think it's as clear-cut as that at all. Do you remember, obviously, the Rochdale grooming gang? Yep. You obviously alluded to that. The police did not want to speak out because they were scared. They were scared of being called racist. They were scared of the backlash that would happen. And now we see the police acting in a way. We haven't seen both sides of the complete story, although I did read a piece, this was from the BBC on their website, that said that, this is from a witness, he said that he was coming to arrivals, police officers had approached one man in his early 20s and told them that he was a wanted man before they pinned him against a wall. Another man then started on the police and a fight ensued, he said. The man who was being pinned against the wall started throwing punches. He was tased and fell to the floor. This is from a witness who was there. I mean, you can't verify. That's just something that... And it was on the BBC website, so that is my source. The point I'm trying to make is this. We haven't seen the whole thing. No. And it seems almost as though the police have been hung, drawn and quartered before anything can happen.
I also think they might be doing that a bit to themselves, with respect, Nana, because there was a change of tune, wasn't there? There was a change of tune. Last night, this time yesterday, we were here and there was a notes to editors at the bottom of the latest press release. Came through for Greater Manchester Police. Notes to editors. This police officer has not been suspended. And as far as I can tell, the only thing that has changed between now and this time last night is that there's been protests and there's been demonstrations and there's been someone coming out and saying that this is institutional racism in the police. And now this officer's been suspended.
Can I just come in? The problem is that the Greater Manchester Police are under a lot of stress. They've got 800 outstanding freedom of information requests. And this is from things that may have happened that people are asking. There's a massive backlog. So they are really hamstrung. So half of me feels sorry for them. On the other half, I don't know where we go with this.
Sure.
Look, whenever the police deal with something like this, there's 2 things they know. They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't, and it will get worse if they take long. Any situation that they then change, and they came out with an initial statement, fine. If they then change something, they should be very clear about why they've changed, what they changed. Because if not, it just builds speculation. And all of the people who are against them have some conspiracy theory, some fuel for their conspiracy theory, but neutral people start saying, well, where are you? Why have you changed this? What can't you tell us? The police should understand very carefully. They have to be open. It makes whatever comes much less of an issue for them. But here's what it is. The police are terrified of the press now because they get punished by the press and people lose their jobs. We need to get to a situation where the police can deal with something tough and it's only about the officers involved, not the whole force in general.
But also, just on that, exactly, if there is a situation like when the press releases started coming out yesterday, which paints a picture of a female police officer who's had her nose broken, 2 other officers punched to the ground, requiring hospital treatment. It paints a quite vivid picture, actually, of this absolute melee in which armed officers are in the thick of something very serious, very volatile, and that might act as a justification for the really, you know, quite shocking head kick that we saw there. And if you get people going into bat for that and giving the police the benefit of the doubt, and here we are now, you know, 24 hours on from that, with a total vacuum being created, and you start to think, well, hang on a minute, what has really gone on here? Matthew, what I want to know is, why has nobody been charged, OK? I don't expect you to have the answer for this, but why has nobody been charged? Because, you know...
Not a chief constable, sadly.
A female police officer had her nose broken. 2 other police officers were sent to hospital after this. We've got the only person, as of right now, who is facing any kind of punishment is a police officer.
Yeah. So look, it's very important. Andy Burnham, as Mayor of Greater Manchester, and that makes him the Police and Crime Commissioner of Greater Manchester as well, needs to be doing is asking the police and giving the police support so that they continue to investigate 2 things, as well as the complaint against the officer for the head kick. The first thing is the original issue that led to the arrest in the first place, which seems to have completely forgotten. And then secondly, the issues that happened, the other issues that happened with the incident around that arrest and around the violence that ensued, which, as we understand it, left a female police officer with a broken nose. So that cannot be forgotten about. Yes, of course, we've seen the video footage of the head kick. If there's enough reason to suspend that officer whilst investigations take place, OK. But the investigations must continue to take place into what other people did in that same incident.
Right, but Sean, I'll come back to you on this now, because I've seen quite recent comments, well, recent-ish, from the Home Secretary of Ed Cooper. Paul Waugh is the local MP for the Rochdale area, where I think at least one of them is believed to be a constituent there. The latest statements, there's no mention of, I hope the police are all right in this. It's all about, we sat down, we've spoken to the people concerned. They need to see that justice has been done. Well, conceivably, there's a female police officer at home tonight with a broken nose.
There's 2 things I'd say. Firstly, we have a political atmosphere now where people are much more concerned about who elects them rather than who they're meant to be advocating for, because, again, the police are an important institution. I come from the black community. We've had all of our dramas with the police, but I'd still tell you they are an important institution, and I think the politicians involved should remember that. But the other deeper personal thing is we arm our officers. We put them in very, very tough situations. Adrenaline flows. And if we believe that adrenaline is not going to flow and they can control every situation, themselves in every situation, we are mistaken. And I think sometimes we have to view situations through what happened beforehand, what state it left that officer in. Because if we don't, what happens is you get many officers who just start to leave. You already saw the situation we had in London where armed officers were handing back their firearms qualification because they didn't feel supported, because nobody was trying to understand the environment in which they have to work.
And, Nana, we have got people outside a police station last night saying, we're going to protest, we're going to kick off, here's a lawyer to call if you get nicked for protesting. Sorry, but that's not normal.
Well, it's just like Rent-A-Mob. I mean, they're there, they were always there for these things. I mean, when the Black Lives Matter people came out when they didn't have anything else to do, it's Just Stop Oil. Suddenly these people who don't appear to be working, so it's usually students and old people, you know what I mean? And now this mob of people and I think a lot of the time you've got people protesting who, if they were to be in there where they probably come from, in the country that they, maybe their background, they probably wouldn't be allowed to protest in that way. I literally look at this and think that we need all the facts. I don't think it's acceptable to kick anyone in the head. No. But then again, it's not acceptable to punch somebody in the nose and break their nose. So I don't understand why this... No. And I get that they are police, but they also have to uphold the law, and they use a level of force that they believe is right, and we need to know what led them to that.
There's got to be context. This has been going on for far too long without context now, and actually it is starting to look increasingly dodgy for the police. Yes. And it is, right? And that is...
Yeah, we can't have mob rule anywhere, whether it's on the streets of Rochdale or it's the streets of Leeds last week. Yeah. And so social services or the police need to be able to do their jobs without, if something becomes uncomfortable, any particular group saying that it's motivated by them being from that particular group.
We absolutely, it's got to a point where we need to know now about about exactly what led up to this incident, because it's either straightforward police brutality, or you've got whatever else has gone on before, and we need to know. But I've got to whiz us on, because a spokesperson of Greater Manchester Police has said, following a thorough review of further information that has become available in relation to an incident at Manchester Airport On Tuesday evening, Greater Manchester Police has suspended a police officer from all duties. A referral has now been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct for a full independent investigation. We understand the deep concerns that have been widely raised with us and will continue to meet and discuss these feelings with Greater Manchester residents and elected representatives whilst this independent investigation takes place. So, coming up, I'll bring you the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and next, well, it's a very big exclusive, actually. We've managed to obtain audio of vile Islamist preacher Anjem Chowdhury teeing off on Prince Harry.
Because of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people probably, he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia court.
Well, we're going to be hearing from Anjem next.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo, from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Most people will be familiar with French artists such as Auguste Renoir, Claude Monet and Camille Pissarro, who, with others, made up the Impressionist movement of the late 19th century. But we are probably less familiar with the British contingent of the Impressionists, artists like Frank Bramley, Elizabeth Armstrong Forbes and Walter Langley, amongst many others. David Messam is on a mission to change that. I'm joined by David Messam and by Patrick Duffy, an esteemed archivist. These people we're talking about, are they really Impressionists? I mean, I assume they're British, but are they Impressionists?
I think we had the same query when we wrote a book about the whole thing in '85, actually. And we were the book nearly went out as The Garden of Bright Images, actually, though my author then, Laura Wortley, was quite insistent that it should be called The Garden of Bright Images, but I thought probably we'd put it in the gardening section, actually. So, the question you ask is what is on other people's minds, too, actually. Have we got Impressionism in this country? I think for me, as I used to do quite a lot of shopping, if you like, in America, looking for English pictures out there, and they've got American Impressionism, and I'm quite happy with it, but the English are different.
Were they friends and colleagues? Were they collaborators with the French Impressionists?
Broadly speaking, British Impressionism is, as we term it, is the post-Impressionist movement. So they were certainly inspired by the French Impressionist movement as it was, but they came later. They travelled around Europe and became attuned to en plein air painting, so painting outdoors, and that's what they brought over with them. We call it British realism, but there's a focus.
British realism, I kind of recognise.
Yes.
I mean, that's exactly what that looks like.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Well, coming up, I will have the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But first, we bring you a GB News exclusive. Audio obtained by GB News has revealed that radical preacher Anjem Chowdhury's bombshell demands of Prince Harry. Chowdhury is facing life in prison after being convicted on Tuesday of leading a group banned under UK terror laws. But it turns out Prince Harry's boast that he killed 25 Taliban fighters in his memoir Spare clearly rubbed the vile Islamists up the wrong way. So, here it is. Let's listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, basically in Islam there are various punishments. I don't want to go through the whole breakdown, but one of them is called blood money, which in Arabic is diya, D-I-Y-Y-A-H, diya. And the diya is for everything. I mean, if someone gouges out an eye, then the compensation for that's 50 camels. For one finger is 10 camels. And if you take someone's life, then there's a narration of the Prophet. He said that's 100 camels, of which 40 are pregnant. And basically, you can take the monetary value. So I had a look online. One camel is nowadays $5,000. So the compensation for that would be, that times 100. So that makes it 50,000. Makes it $500,000, doesn't it? So it's $500,000. So obviously that being the case, and that's obviously up to the family. So what happens is that if someone kills someone intentionally, then the family of the deceased, meaning his relatives, they can decide either to opt for capital punishment, meaning reciprocation, or to take the monetary value, or take the blood money. But I think anyway, in Harry's case, most probably, if it came to a court, because of the nature of his crime, which is just shooting indiscriminately at people, probably he would probably face the death penalty under the Sharia, under Sharia court. But in general, if the Taliban are asking for compensation, then the compensation would be the equivalent of that 100 camels, and of which 40 are pregnant, which is, as I say, $500,000. So for 25 people, it would be $12.5 million. And and I was just thinking that, I mean, all things considered, especially post American withdrawal from Afghanistan, they are needy for the money at the moment. I mean, the country is in crisis over there economically. I mean, he's making a fortune from this book, isn't he? I mean, it's more popular than Harry Potter and his nemesis. But anyway, yeah, so I mean, he can afford that, can't he? He can afford to pay that because he's going to make fine excess of that, and he's making it on the back of saying he's killed all these Afghans as well, all these Muslims in Afghanistan. So I think it's only right that the proceeds of this book are put to good use, which is to pay reparations for the British crimes in Afghanistan.
So, well, I now welcome the journalist who was on the other end of that extraordinary call with Anjem Chowdhury. It's Dominic Lemansky. Dominic, thank you very much. Just to summarise a bit there, he's basically said that Prince Harry under Sharia law would probably face the death penalty, but he might be able to get away with it if he pays $12.5 million for slaughtering a few Taliban fighters, and it's the least he can do because actually the Taliban need the money, and he's making loads of money off his book, isn't he? Dominic, look, you've known Chowdhury for quite a long time, I believe, haven't you? Can you just explain to us the circumstances behind that interaction?
It's been about 18 years. I think I met him first at a protest, ironically, outside the Old Bailey. I suppose, and since then it's been, a regular stream of, meets over the years. Whenever he's been in the news or there's been a topic which he has got some link to, and as the years went by, he would introduce me to his followers, his disciples, and I always thought it was useful to keep in contact because these people ended up going and fighting for ISIS.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the web of terror Anjem Chowdhury has managed to kind of embed himself in is absolutely astonishing, isn't it? So it's fair to say then that Anjem Chowdhury isn't a massive fan of Prince Harry, I take it. And did it come as a shock to you to find out that, Anjem is now facing life for, potentially more terror offences?
It does in a way. It feels a bit surreal because I've known this person for nearly 20 years. I've been a journalist for, I think, 22. So I've known him nearly the whole time. I used to share a coffee with him. We were quite amicable. Despite his sort of public persona, he was never threatening towards me. He's charismatic. He can be strangely, he can be strangely quite entertaining, but you always know there's that edge with him, that it's a transactional relationship. He obviously he did want the attention, and he did want to have his activities covered. But I didn't think that the authorities would make a second case against him stick. I'm still surprised, really.
I think another aspect to this is interesting is he goes, so under a Sharia court, Prince Harry would probably face the death penalty. I do believe that under a Sharia court, actually quite a few people will probably end up facing the death penalty for relatively minor things. But that said, he did also front up a group, did he, I think, Sharia for UK, and had quite a few disciples, as you called them, there. So he did conceivably, anyway, on paper, actually want us to operate a Sharia court. And quite concerningly, I think for us, there were a lot of people in Britain who also wanted that.
I think the worrying thing with Chowdhury was that he wasn't ever going to go and fight for ISIS himself or, pick up arms. But he was such a charismatic personality that he could encourage other people to go and effectively, do his dirty work. I would meet someone that he would introduce me to in Walthamstow, and I'd get picked up at Walthamstow station in a Mercedes and driven to an area they wanted to show me something for a story. Didn't think much of it, and years later, the guy turns out to have become Jihadi Sid, one of ISIS's executioners. He was his real name Siddhartha Dar. His Muslim name that he took when he converted to Islam from Hinduism was Abu Ramaisa. And after he was filmed doing a propaganda video for ISIS, he was given the nickname Jihadi Sid.
I mean,
he picked me up in a car at Walthamstow station about 12 years ago for a story.
I mean, it is just absolutely bonkers, isn't it? Dominic, can I just say a massive thank you for, getting us this big exclusive, actually, really, to be honest with you. Andrew Chowdhury's comments on Prince Harry there. It's such a fascinating discussion off the back. I would really like to chat to you again soon, actually, possibly at more length about Andrew Chowdhury and some of the experiences that you've had with him and others. Dominic, thank you very much. Take care. That was journalist Dominic Lemansky there. Coming up, the West continues to be plagued by, what's quite on brand of this, doesn't it? Pro-Hamas idiots. Well, I will show you Benjamin Netanyahu's hilarious response to that shortly. But next, I'll deliver you the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so stay tuned.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. There's likely to be something a bit drier and warmer early next week, but before then, plenty of showers, and actually through the end of today, there is still some more persistent rain affecting some parts of the southeast due to a waving frontal system that's already brought quite a bit of rain. That rain in the far southeast should clear through as we go through the next few hours though, and so for many it is going to be a largely dry night, just a scattering of showers continuing across western parts of Scotland in particular, also parts of Northern Ireland and northwest England. Many places though having some clear skies, and it may be a touch fresher than last night towards the northwest, still quite warm and muggy towards the southeast. And as we go through tomorrow morning then, a bright start for many, maybe the odd pocket of mist and fog around, but I think on the whole it's largely dry. A few showers already pushing into parts of western England and Wales, but further east a drier story. A few showers also for western parts of Northern Ireland, but it's down the western side of Scotland where the showers are going to be most frequent, and there could already be some heavy ones as we go through the morning. Eastern parts of Scotland clinging on to some fine sunny weather through a large chunk of the morning, but as we head towards the afternoon, those showers are going to become a bit more widespread. Some of them could be on the heavy side, and there could be the odd rumble of thunder mixed in, albeit they don't look as intense as the showers that we saw yesterday. Plenty of showers for Northern Ireland. Parts of western England and Wales may see a few showers, staying dry towards the east and a decent amount of sunshine, and with that feeling pretty warm again, temperatures in the mid-20s for some. Looking ahead to Saturday, and after a mostly fine start for many of us, we are going to see the showers developing yet again. Slight differences in where we're most likely to see the showers. Probably northern England, North Wales could see the heaviest showers on Saturday, and they could be quite slow moving because the winds will be dropping out a little bit. But Sunday into Monday looks drier and warmer. Bye-bye.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akweer. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News, and I've got the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you. God, it's all right. OK, the Metro, £4 billion Olympic support for Team GB. On your marks, get set, gold. 1 million British fans are heading to Paris for the Olympics. Well, good luck. Right, The Independent. Harry, my battle with the tabloids is a central piece of royal family rift. Well, unfortunately for Prince Harry, we did just play an exclusive of Anjem Choudhury, the Islamist, talking about him earlier on, so it turns out he's not popular with him either. But officer suspended as outrage grows over head stamp arrest. That's The Independent's take on the, quote, police brutality row. Let's go to the Daily Mail. Labour's £300 green energy bill saving lie, which you know, good for them, they've actually put in quotes. But Ed Miliband is forced to admit that his clean power revolution may not actually cut costs for families for years. Who could have seen that coming? Certainly not all of us. No. Let's go to the Eye. Starmer warned against pension tax hit for 7 million savers. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. We'd spoken a bit about that last night with Theo Usherwood, actually. That is conceivably massive, that pension hit. Let's go to the Telegraph now. Chancellor to reveal £19 billion hole in finances. Rachel Reeves to blame the budget deficit as she prepares the ground for autumn tax raid. There's also another one here, and it is quite convenient and nice to be slightly ahead of the times. We've just done a big segment on whether or not Greater Manchester Police are going to give in to mob rule. Well, here we go, the front of the Telegraph. Mob rule warning over Manchester policing protests, and that, I believe, comes from Lord Walney, who's the government's independent advisor on political violence and disruption, formerly a Labour MP as well. Let's just finish off with the Daily Mirror. Stab frenzy soldier's hero wife. Eileen, 46, confronted the attacker, and this is about the wife of the army officer Mark Teaton, who has been hailed a hero for trying to drag the attacker off him during stabbing. So that's what's on the front of the Mirror there. Right, I'm going to bring in my wonderful panel here, and I'm going to get stuck straight into two Labour lies. And I'm going to go with you, Matthew.
Chelsea, please.
The Chancellor revealing a £19 billion hole in the finances. There's going to be an autumn tax raid. Well, the Tories were right, weren't they? Labour's going to hike your taxes. And then also, Ed Miliband, you know, the bloke who plays ukuleles near wind farms, £300 green energy bill saving is a lie. So
I worked for him, and he never played his ukulele anywhere near me.
Well, what does that? I don't know what that says anyway. But look, you know, this is ridiculous, isn't it? We've got a clean power lie, we've got a tax lie. We're only however many weeks in.
Well, I mean, you know, they are in the two most Tory supporting papers there. So, I mean, look, the finances are in a worse state, as are our public services than Labour feared. So they are going to have to. It is true.
It's not true. Do you know why they're called public? Hold on. Do you know why they're called public finances? Because they're in the public arena. anybody can Google exactly how much the government is spending. That's utter nonsense. There is some surprise. If Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, didn't know this was coming, then she wasn't doing her job because it's in the public arena.
Well, not everything is in the public arena.
Yes,
I mean, no, it isn't, sure. OK, we can play this kind of, Canto-style game, but I'm not going to. Look, I mean, I think that, Labour is never said it wasn't going to put up taxes. It said it wasn't going to put up national insurance and it wasn't going to put up income tax. There may have to be some tax on working people. There may have to be...
People are dead and people don't work.
There may have to be some tax changes, around the edges. Capital gains tax, we were quite clear on, would have to be looked at, for example.
No, I know that net zero and all of that is a big pet peeve of yours. You do it fabulously on your show all the time. Ed Miliband forced to admit his clean power revolution may not cut costs for families for years, despite election pledges. So just a bit of detail on this. The Labour's pledge to slash £300 off your energy bill, OK, was just been branded a lie because the Tories have attacked them over it, but also they have now had to admit that actually there is a good chance that this isn't going to happen anytime soon. Nana.
Well, I mean, look, I took him as seriously as one of those creature comforts. Remember those British gas men? Nice and warm out there with the energy. He looks like one of those. I mean, I'm not really rude, Ben, but you do. You're probably too young to remember that. But look, I literally listened to what he was saying, and I just knew he was talking absolute claptrap. I mean, you're going to take fields and put solar panels in. Don't be so. What are you going to do for food? What are you going to do for food? I mean, what about the animals? You're going to put these wind farms up. Do you know that those propellers, that thing only lasts about 15 years or whatever? So you've got to get the thing there. How are you going to get it there? You need.
Well, you can't put it in a Green MP's constituency either because they just won't let you.
Well, so to be honest, I mean, and they kill animals as the thing swings and they fly past. They're noisy. They're awful. I don't know why. And they only work when the wind blows. And then he's talking about the miles and miles of pylons across the United Kingdom. I don't think that... it's not realistic. They cannot harness the energy in that way, and I really think the plans don't make sense.
The big thing is about energy security and the money that it's going to save us, right? That's the lines that they've been going off.
Money.
Well, and this is the problem, which is that actually, if it's not going to save us any money...
What's the point?
And it's not going to make us any more secure when it comes to our energy, then this has been... an expensive and potentially quite destructive mistake.
The real problem here, this is the first of the 1,000 cuts that kills the Labour Party's manifesto. There'll be a number of people who voted for this. They will see that it's not going to happen and they'll be very upset. That's the problem.
Well, look, I mean, what we need is to have energy security by having more energy made in Britain, which is why Ed has moved to on both onshore and offshore wind and on solar power in the first days of the Labour government. We're only 2 weeks, 3 weeks in.
Where do you think they're making those propellers for the wind farms? All right. In China?
No, some of them have been made in. Some of them have been made in Grimsby.
No, it's made in China.
We will. They say that Grimsby looks a little bit like Beijing in a certain light, actually. But anyway, right now, on to something else. Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the United States has provoked a series of reactions, mostly unwelcome, as the Israeli Prime Minister had thousands of maggots dumped at the Washington hotel where he was staying by pro-Palestine protesters. It's disgusting, that, isn't it? Thousands of demonstrators showed their contempt towards Netanyahu's visit in their own unique way, one which included the burning of the American flag, one which included the burning of other things as well. Just take a look at this. Well, Netanyahu also gave quite a brilliant takedown of the old Queers for Palestine brigade.
Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
Yeah, I mean, he's right, isn't he? And everyone knows they're right, apart from, arguably, gays for Gaza. But, right, coming up, Prince Harry continues his woe is me war on the tabloids.
Does your mother motivate you in this legal fight?
There's all sorts of things that motivate me.
Well, we're going to be discussing his latest cry for attention, which apparently has just landed. Plus, can you spot what's wrong with this campaign poster? This is Tom Tugendhat's campaign poster. Any ideas? We've highlighted it in red. We'll discuss all of that and more as I deliver some more of tomorrow's front pages.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Football and gambling can go hand in hand and cause long-term problems. New figures show that young adults aged between 16 and 24 who have bet over the last year are more likely to report mental health issues compared to those in older age groups.
And joining us now to discuss this is Matt Burgess, who is a former gambling addict and now helps those to deal with their own gambling issues.
Yeah, I think gambling is one of those things that is so accessible now. You know, everyone's got a kind of mobile phone in their pocket, walks around with a kind of 24-hour casino, if you like. So I think it's really important that people realise that we have to sort of recognise that that is a month of quite condensed gambling, and we don't want people to sort of carry that on into their everyday life, because that's when it can become really risky and you know, it could become addictive.
I had no idea, though, that it was linked to first-time gambling. For the first time, people might be able to pick up and have a go. And then it doesn't end there. It goes on, because by then you've got the bug. Is that how it works?
You've got to remember, for things like the Euros, the World Cup, so you get a lot more people watching football and therefore potentially betting on football.
May I ask you about how severe your own gambling addiction got?
Well, look, I think there was a couple of touch points for me where I realised that things were getting out of hand. There were some times at university where, you know, I kind of thought, you know, I'm definitely doing this a bit too much, but, you know, kind of thought maybe it would move on once I left, but it didn't. It did follow me. And then, you know, I got to points where I was at my worst gambling 16, 17 hours a day. I was spending huge amounts of money. It can spiral out of control very, very quickly, and that was the important thing that we want to highlight is, you know, what can start as fun can become very, very dangerous in a sense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I've got some more front pages for you. I'm going to start with the Times. Hospitals have gone unchecked for 10 years. Stunned West Streeting says that the Care Quality Commission is unfit for purpose. One inspector had never set foot on a ward, which, to be honest, does sound like a problem.
That's like the Yes Minister's move, where there were no pages in the hospital.
Yeah. Do you know what? That is actually brilliant. Anyway, we haven't got time for that. Right, OK, The Guardian. Chancellor to reveal £20 billion shortfall in public finances. We touched on that a little bit earlier on. There we go. Now, there is also quite a bit about the Olympics that are on the front pages there. As ever, I'm joined by my wonderful panel. You know they are by now. But this has happened, I think, whilst I was on air. So, you know, we're learning together for the first time now. Prince Harry appeared on ITV's Tabloids on Trial documentary, which aired tonight. Speaking about his phone hacking scandal ordeal, Harry again spoke about his late mother's experience with the tabloids.
But she wasn't paranoid. She was absolutely right of what was happening to her. And she's not around today to find out the truth.
Does your mother motivate you in this legal fight?
There's all sorts of things that motivate me.
He was also asked about his family's decision not to fight the tabloid battle with him.
I think everything that's played out has shown people what the truth of the matter is. For me, the mission continues, but it's caused, as you say, part of a rift.
And he then revealed this bombshell.
It's still dangerous, and all it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads this stuff to act on what they have read, and whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is, and these are things that are a genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country.
OK, all right. Well, Nana, so he won't bring... I'm paraphrasing here, but he won't bring Meghan Markle back to Britain in case she gets assassinated.
Well, let's be honest here. One lone actor is him, because he's the one that went on about his kill count in his whinge fest of a memoir, Spare, which then made him and his family and the royal family and his old comrades where he worked with them, the soldiers, he made them all targets. So I listened to him and I look at his face. He looks like one of those... It's not a Yorkshire Terrier. It's just one of those little whingy sort of yappy sort of dogs. Not, you know, I'm sorry for Yorkshire Terriers on that one. But it just... always whinging. Oh, woe is me. Oh, poor me, multi-millionaire. I could have the world at my feet. Why is everybody not whimpering like me alongside me? Because it's ridiculous, yeah? He's going on about a bygone era. The press are not allowed to behave like the way they may have behaved in the past. Phone hacking, well, that doesn't happen anymore. It may have happened then.
Well, we hope. Yeah,
we hope. But the bottom line is this, you know,
Nobody uses voicemail.
he needs to move in. Exactly.
That's true, yeah.
We don't use faxes, we don't use voicemail. All right. He needs to move on, closer.
OK, all right. I mean, do you have some sympathy, Sean, at all for some of the stuff he said there?
Notwithstanding what Nana's just said, I do have some sympathy for him about the safety of his family. You only have to read what goes on social media, and he's right. These people organise pile-ins. They're legitimised by what they write about him in the paper. They're legitimised by what's written about them in the paper, and it does put him and his family at risk. I happen to agree.
But he put himself at risk.
He may well have done, but he's never done anything that's invited people to attack his family. But the things that are written about him and things that are on social media could lead to that.
That could happen to anyone.
All right. OK, and, well, there we go. Well, look, we will have to wait and see for the fuller version. Like I said, I've been on air, so I haven't actually seen all of that.
At least he gets protection.
But there we go. Right, OK, so... at the launch of Great British Energy in Cheshire, it's my neck of the woods, that, Sir Keir Starmer took the opportunity to remind us all of something that I'm sure that we've got to grips of by now, but you can have a look and a listen anyway.
Thank you for what you do, and thank you for being here this morning. We want to do a lot of work with you, and this is something the media will know. I said it many times in the election campaign. My dad was a tool maker, and he worked particularly with steel, as you do in tool making of the sort that he was doing. And so I love environments like this. This is what I grew up in, factories like this with my dad, doing the work that he did.
He used to work with steel. OK, so now, Tory leadership hopeful Tom Tugendhat's first crack at a campaign slogan didn't go down too well. His website, titled tomforleader.uk, was in danger of skidding his campaign off the rails before it began, after initially featuring the slogan, "Together we can unite the party, rebuild trust, defeat Labour." Sounds all right, doesn't it? But awkwardly, those words were displayed in a way that spelled out turd. And that poster has since then been poo-pooed by Tugendhat, and his website now carries the slogan, "Together we can unite the party, rebuild trust and win back the country." So there we go. Tom Tugendhat there. Not a great start. Now it's time for today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. All right, everybody. So, Nana, who is your Greatest Britain, please?
Oh, crikey. I can't remember.
I can remind you of it. Don't worry if you want to...
Should we kick off while you...
We can kick off down this end.
Yeah, I've never gone first.
You go first.
OK, so my Greatest Britain is Home Secretary Yvette Cooper for taking actions, not words, against those abusing our immigration system. Tories paid for a plane from Rwanda to sit on the tarmac. Yvette's used it to send 46 offenders against the immigration system back to Vietnam.
Wow. So she's sent people out to Vietnam.
Yeah, who have been convicted criminals or who have abused the system, had no leave to remain. Well, and they've actually it was the plane that was going to be used for Rwanda. They've gone.
There we go. And the civil service didn't get in the way.
That's 46 people who didn't more than went to Rwanda.
Good fair play. Right, Sean.
Mine's is Team GB, with the Olympics kicking off in just a few days now. Our team hopefully will get a huge medal haul. Let's support them. Let's get behind them. I want to see our team do really well, and so should you.
We're off to a flyer. Go on.
OK, so my Greatest Britain is an honorary. It's Benjamin Netanyahu for persisting in the face of evil. I mean, someone has to get rid of Hamas, and he is pushing and going with it, and also for that brilliant analogy with KFC.
Lovely stuff. OK, today's winner of the Greatest Britain is Team GB.
Come on.
Bring home the gold, boys and girls. But who could the winner of the Union Jackass be? I'll start again with you, Matthew.
I'm loving going first. Mine is ex-Met Copper Dal Babu for outrageously jumping on the bandwagon and going on the radio this morning claiming racism was the motivation for the Manchester Airport incident when he could have no idea of the full facts. Totally irresponsible, and we're paying his police pension.
Good. Right, go on.
Mine's is Sadiq Khan for his ULEZ expansion. The first report has said it cannot show any difference around what's happened, so he's paid all of those millions for absolutely no improvement in air quality.
Really?
That's a shocker, because there's charities, there's local nurses who've had to get new vehicles because of this. It is a shocker.
Yeah, well, that is a shocker, actually. OK, Nana.
My Union Jackass has to be Sakir Starmer because he keeps going on about this toolmaker thing. His father is a toolmaker. His father made him. He can't even hear the punchline.
Right, now,
it is late.
Now, everybody, we have to pause for what is a monumental moment in Patrick Christys Tonight history, because Matthew Laza has won tonight. There we go. Without Babin for crying, you know, institutional racism and all of this stuff that he was talking about before about the Manchester. Well done, Matthew. You have, can I just say, you've worked incredibly hard for this. Yep. You have. You really have.
I'm like Team GB, it's taken me a while.
Every single week we'll move slightly further to the right just to try to get it. Right, thank you very much, everybody. Really good show tonight. Can I just say a massive thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening as well. Headliners are up next. I'll see you when I see you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. There's likely to be something a bit drier and warmer early next week, but before then, plenty of showers. And actually, through the end of today, there is still some more persistent rain affecting some parts of the southeast due to a waving frontal system that's already brought quite a bit of rain. That rain in the far southeast should clear through as we go through the next few hours, though. And so for many, it is going to be a largely dry night, just a scattering of showers continuing across western parts of Scotland in particular, also parts of Northern Ireland and northwest England. Many places, though, having some clear skies, and it may be a touch fresher than last night towards the northwest, still quite warm and muggy towards the southeast. And as we go through tomorrow morning, then a bright start for many. Maybe the odd pocket of mist and fog around, but I think on the whole it's largely dry. A few showers already pushing into parts of western England and Wales, but further east a drier story. A few showers also for western parts of Northern Ireland, but it's down the western side of Scotland where the showers are going to be most frequent, and there could already be some heavy ones as we go through the morning. Eastern parts of Scotland clinging on to some fine sunny weather through a large chunk of the morning, but as we head towards the afternoon, those showers are going to become a bit more widespread. Some of them could be on the heavy side, and there could be the odd rumble of thunder mixed in, albeit they don't look as intense as the showers that we saw yesterday. Plenty of showers for Northern Ireland. Parts of western England and Wales may see a few showers, staying dry towards the east, and a decent amount of sunshine, and with that feeling pretty warm again, temperatures in the mid-20s for some. Looking ahead to Saturday, and after a mostly fine start for many of us, we are